Welcome back. In today's class, we will discuss about swing equation, which gives us important information about the internal torque angle, which influences the active power flow in the power system. In the last class, we have seen the dynamics of synchronous machine. We have gone through the different types of stability. But today's class, we will be completely concentrating on swing equation. So before going any further, let me explain to you the concept of swing equation right from the basics. I'm going to consider a synchronous generator. I'm going to consider a synchronous generator, which was running basically at some synchronous speed. So I'm going to consider that my synchronous machine, which has been running at synchronous speed omega s and has an electromagnetic torque of Tm. Okay, sorry, I'll take it. T. This is the electromagnetic torque which my synchronous generator is developing inside the rotor. So with the speed of running at a speed of omega s and having an electromagnetic torque of Te, so I can say that electric power will be omega s into Te. That can be referred to as P, isn't it? Okay. Now, this generator should be driven by some turbine, isn't it? By some sort of prime mover. So I'll consider that the generator is driven by a prime mover. It can be turbine or it can be some other machine by some sort of prime mover, which has a mechanical torque. I'll take that torque. Okay, I'll consider this one as a mechanical one. Which is a mechanical torque Tm. Okay. And power of Pm, where Pm is equal to same omega s into Tm. So this was the turbine part which is being fed to your generator. And the generator was developing an electric power. Okay. And this is all assumed at steady state condition. So we thought there was no disturbance and the system was running stably and it was receiving. The generator was delivering an electric power P with a torque of Tg, and it was driven by a prime mover with a torque of Pm and a mechanical power of Pm. Okay. Now, under steady state, what will be there? Under steady state, Tm will be equal to Te, isn't it? Isn't it? So, under normal conditions, assuming that there are no losses, there are no rotational losses, I'll consider here no rotational losses. Under a condition of no rotational losses, your electromagnetic torque will be equal to your input torque. Isn't it? If I multiply both sides with omega s, which is nothing but Pm, P, or I can write it as Pm minus P is equal to 0. This is the normal condition during steady state. But when there is a change in load, or any fault has occurred, or whenever there was any fault, okay, these two are not going to be equal. Pm and Pe are not going to be equal. There will be some difference. Suddenly Pe has dropped. So, in case of any change in load, in case any fault has occurred, let us suppose the output was not being delivered. So what happens? There will be a difference between Pm and Pe, isn't it? Now, this equation, the difference between these two is not going to be 0. And it results in an accelerating torque. What will happen? It results in an accelerating torque. Okay? And normally this accelerating torque, the part which is consumed here is represented as accelerating power also. Okay? Which means Pm minus Pi is P. So normally this is the case during the force. Okay? This is called as accelerating power. So what will this accelerating power will do in the machine? Normally this accelerating power, if it is positive, it is called as accelerating power. If it is negative, it is called as decelerating power. Okay? This accelerating power or decelerating power, whatever it is. Now this is gonna affect your rotor position of the system. This will affect the rotor, the position of the rotor. This will affect the rotor position, which means that the rotor may be speeding up or maybe changing its shaft, reference position. So like that, there may be deviations in the rotor. Okay. Now I am considering that this accelerating part results in two things. Pa is equal to M into d square theta E by dt. Normally this is accelerating power, right? So I can write it directly here. M into alpha, where alpha is the acceleration of the rotor. So what is the acceleration of the rotor? D square theta E by dt. Apart from that, there may be some damping also, which will be there in the system. This is called as the damping coefficient. This is called as the moment of inertia. I think we have come across this one in the last class. And theta E is generally referred to as electrical angular position of the rotor. Electrical angular position of rotor. So this is what happens when there is a sudden change in load or any fault has occurred. It will result in an accelerating power, which will result in acceleration of your rotor, and there may be some damping also. Okay. Normally, damping can be neglected. If damping is neglected, I'll write it as if damping is neglected. So what is my final expression? Pa is equal to M into d square theta E by dt. So dt square. Okay. So this is the expression. I'll write it down here. Pa is equal to M into d square theta E by dt square, where M is the moment of inertia and theta E is the electrical angular position of the rotor. Now, if you do remember your machines, synchronous machine, rotor reference frame, etc. Now I'll show you one thing. Okay. Now angular position of the rotor, whatever I have represented, theta e. Now I can write it as, normally what happens is the rotor angular position will be like this. Is assuming this is rotor angular. Okay, this is rotor angular position. This is this particular curve is referred to as rotor reference axis. This curve, assuming that it represents your rotor reference axis, and normally this reference axis, if there is any accelerating force, the rotor field will be moving. It will be leaving this rotor reference axis and it will be moving in the space. Okay, with the speed of omega s. With the speed of omega. Okay. Now I am considering one more thing here. This is rotor. This is rotor reference rotating axis. Okay. This is normal reference axis which will be considering. If you go through the synchronous machine, you can see that there will be different reference frames. So I am considering rotating reference frame. So with respect to rotating reference, I am assuming that this is the reference rotating axis. Okay. Now the rotor field will be moving just because of the axillary, either with respect to reference axis or with respect to reference rotating axis. So with respect to reference axis, normally this particular displacement, theta e, this is referred to as theta e. This is a change in the position of rotor field because of the acceleration which the rotor received because of the fault. But most of the cases, nobody is gonna refer this theta e in synchronous machine, which we have seen this one. So normally they will be referring, they will be taking this one as a reference. Okay, this is often referred to as delta. You can see that one in your machines or in power systems. You don't find theta. You normally find delta. Delta is the actual displacement with respect to the new reference axis. This is the new reference. Okay, and this is the normal reference axis which will be there in the synchronous machine. People will be considering this one, reference rotating. So I am going to consider delta in terms of rather than considering theta e, because this is widely used. And this rotating axis, normally it will be moving with the speed of omega. Normally this will be shifting. For a time period of t, this displacement will be omega s into t. Okay. If the fault has persisted for time period of t, then the displacement will be omega s into t. So now what is delta? Observing the figure. Okay. Considering, preferring delta over theta e, the relation is delta is equal to theta e minus omega s into t. Isn't it? This is the relation between these. What I have done, instead of considering the regular reference axis, I have chosen the widely used rotating axis as a reference. So this is the difference delta is equal to theta E minus omega S into 2. Now, if I differentiate it with respect to, so what I will be getting here? If I double differentiate it, this one. Now I am substituting this one. I am substituting this particular one. So what is my accelerating power? M into d square delta by dt. Okay. Where Pa is the accelerating power, M is the moment of inertia, delta is the torque. Okay. Delta is the torque angle. Okay. So what is Pa actually? Pa is nothing but mechanical power minus electrical power. Okay. And this is mechanical power minus electrical power. Now I can also write it this one. You know that what is M? We have done it in the last class. M can be written as GH by pi S. Or it can be referred to as GH by 180 also. If you are using the units of degrees, you can go with 180. If you are using the units of radian, you better go with pi. So I can write this equation as GH by pi F into M into d square delta by dt square is equal to mechanical power minus electrical power. In this one, H is the inertia constant, F is the frequency, G is the rating of the machine, delta is the torque angle, mechanical input to the machine, electrical output of the machine. Okay. Now, if I divide it throughout with G, what is G? Basically, G is nothing but the rating of the machine, right? If I divide it throughout, what will this become? H by pi F d square delta by dt square is equal to, this is per unit minus P per unit. This expression and this expression, these are called as swing equations. This is per, in terms of per units, this is the normal swing equation. Understood now? Now the question is, what is the advantage of this one? Why we are considering this one? I am coming back to that particular one. The solution of this one, let us suppose at any particular instance, I know what is the mechanical input which is given to the machine, and I know what is the electrical power which I am observing from the machine, and I know the inertia constant, so I can compute delta value. Okay, so the solution of swing equation gives delta, gives the torque angle delta. Now, okay. Now what should we? If I plot delta with respect to time, the delta will be varying like this. Okay, this is called a swing curve. This is called a swing curve. So what is significance of swing equation? It gives the values of delta through which we can plot the swing curve. Swing curve is delta with respect to time. Okay. Now, what are the advantages of swing curve? We can estimate, we can study the value of delta. So what is studying the value of delta? As already I told you, if system has experienced the fault, if the system has experienced any disturbance, then what should we do? We should immediately check the different parameters, right? I already told you in the last class that delta is also one of the parameters. So if any disturbance occurs, delta will be varying, and delta, whether it is in the limits or not, we must know. Okay. It might be increasing or it might be decreasing. Why it is more important? Because the electrical power which you are transmitting over the system, it is if a delta varies too much, then what will happen? PE varies too much, isn't it? PE will be varying too much. If PE varies too much, then it is not desirable in a power, isn't it? So that is the significance of swing equation, and this is about swing equation. And and this is regarding a single machine. Now we will be having multi-machine system also. Okay. We don't consider that there is only one single machine in the plant system. We will be encountering many number of generators in the system, for example. So in that case, we will be taking the equivalent value of X here. We will be taking the equivalent value of PE. We will be taking the equivalent value of P. Okay. That equivalent value refers to the equivalent of two machines. So in that case, how it will be done? So normally, let us suppose here in this case, you have taken the swing equation. You are dividing it with your G value. Your G is your machine rate. Isn't it? You are taking that one as a base, and you are dividing this entire. But sometimes what happens? If you are good at per unit system, we will be mentioning our own system data. We won't be allowing you to take that G as the base quantity. In that case, the inertia constant will be varying. Okay. And I'll represent it for you for your sake. So I hope you have understood the swing equation. Now, I'll just, for those who are going for higher education or for competitive exam, this particular 2 minutes topic is for you. Now, if the system base is given as G system, so the system base is given as G system, then what do you have actually? Swing equation is G your machine, this is machine, into H by pi F into D square delta by dt square is equal to Pm minus Pe, right? This was the system. Sorry, this was that of the machine. Now, what I'm doing is, this one was also the machine. Now, I'm gonna divide this entire thing. Now, I'm gonna divide this entire thing. I'll take it as system. So what will this happen? This will become G system by this is H machine into D square delta by dt square is equal to Pm minus Pe by G system. This is the equation. Now, this particular one is referred to as H system. This was your machine initial inertia constant. Now, if you are going for another bit, this is H system. They will be asking you 100 kVA H is equal to some 4.5 machine is operating so and so. But what they will be doing, they will be stating that what is the H value for a rate, H for a base of 200 kV. So immediately what you are supposed to do, H system is equal to G of the machine is 100 into 4.5 by 200. So this will become 2.25. Okay. This is regarding the per unit. This is the way how we do. Okay. Now, so let us suppose if there are two machines. Okay. Now, if there are two machines, Now, what happens if there are two machines? Okay. If there are two machines, what we'll be considering is, I'll be considering this one as H equivalent, right? This is the string equation, right? This is for single system. For a two system model, for a two generator model, what I'll be doing, there will be two things, right? Time remains the same, that's why I have not mentioned it as T1. Okay. Normally frequency also will be same. Okay. So if I join these, okay, so what I'll be getting? Can I do this thing? Can I do this thing? No, I shouldn't do this because the bases may be different. So that's why I am supposed to make it per unit. Unless you do per unit, you shouldn't join like this. Okay. So that's why what I'll be doing, I'll be making it as H system 1. This I'll be making as H system 2. Now you can join this. This is H1 system. This is H2 system. Okay. Now my H equivalent will become, I can write it as H equivalent is equal to H1 system plus H2 system. Okay. And my this one, they may be asking you for a two machine system, how you will be computing this. Okay, this is the way how we will be computing H equivalent for a multi-machine system. If there are number of machines also, G1 P1 plus G2 P2 plus G3 P3 like this. So this is H. G1 H1 plus G2 H2 like this by G system. This will give your H equivalent. This is your mechanical power equivalent. You can directly add them. This is electrical power equivalent. You can directly add. Okay, this is the case of multi-machine system. Okay. So having said this, we'll come back to the regular syllabus. We'll do a problem on swing equation now. I hope you are having your calculus. So I'll be solving a problem now. Tutorial on swing equation. Now, I request all of you to heed your attention. This is one of an essay problem, which will be asked in your external examinations and also mid-examination. Okay. So trying to concentrate. A 60 hertz, 4-pole turbo generator. A 60 hertz, 4-pole turbo generator, rated 100 MVA and 13.8 and 13.8 kV has inertia constant H, which is equal to 10 MJ by MVA. 10 MJ by MVA. Now he is asking so many things. The first one is stored energy in the rotor. This is first thing which is asking. Stored energy in the rotor when it is running at synchronous. Fine. This is one thing. Second thing is, if the input is suddenly raised to 60 megawatts, if the input is suddenly raised to 60 megawatts, with PE remaining constant at 50 megawatts, okay? With PE remaining constant at 50 megawatts, determine acceleration. Determine acceleration. And he is also asking that if this is alpha, if alpha is maintained constant for 12 cycles, which means suddenly the machine input was increased. So output was 50 megawatts, but input was increased to 60 megawatts. So what happens? The machine starts accelerating, isn't it? So he wants to know what is acceleration. And when the machine was accelerating, what will happen? The speed also will increase. The displacement also will increase, isn't it? It is just like your bike. Accelerate speed will increase, so displacement also increases. So if alpha is maintained constant for 12 cycles, so what he is asking is determine the omega, angular speed, and delta at the end of 12 cycles. Okay, this is what he is asking. Okay, so now let's see how to find this using string equation. So case number 1, stored energy. What is the stored energy in your machine? I have already given this many times. The formula is very simple. It is G into H. G is already given for you. The rating of the machine is 100 MVA into H is inertia constant 10. So the stored energy will be 1000 megajoules. Isn't it? This is going to be 1000 megajoules. Now, we'll come back to the second. What he is saying that mechanical power is 60 and electrical power is 50 megawatts. So what is the accelerating power, guys? Tm minus Pe, it is going to be 10 megawatts, isn't it? And this 10 megawatts is resulting in my acceleration of the system, isn't it? So this Pa is equal to m into alpha, where alpha is equal to d square delta by 3d square, isn't it? So what is Pa? 10. What is m? I don't know. So first of all, m I am supposed to find, isn't it? So what is m value? Gh by pi f. This is the formula, isn't it? It is Gh by pi. If you want to use it in degree, then what I am supposed to use? I am supposed to go for 180. This will be in terms of electrical degree. So let us go with electrical degrees now. So what is GH? I have already multiplied. This is 1000 This is 180. Frequency is 50, isn't it? Frequency is 50. Sorry, 50. Oh, sorry, it is 60. Yeah. It is 60, right? It is going to be 5 by 54. Isn't it? It is going to be 5 by 54. So the units are second per electrical degree. So now if I substitute here, this is equal to 10 is equal to 5 by 54 into alpha. Isn't it? So what is alpha, guys? So this is going to be 108 electrical. Sorry, this is degrees, right? Electrical degrees per second. This is the value of acceleration. Have you got it? Now, we will move on to the third part, which is a little bit a tough part. Okay. We will see. Now, yeah. What is the total time which we do have? He is stating that he is going for 12 cycles, isn't it? He is going for 12 cycles. So what do you mean by cycle, guys? It is 1 by 60, 1 by frequency, isn't it? The frequency is 60, so it is 1 by 60. So it is 1 by 5 seconds. So it is going to be 0.2 seconds. Isn't it? So it is going to be 0.2 seconds. So for 0.2 seconds, the mechanical force was 60 and the electrical force was 50. During this 0.2 seconds, the machine would be accelerating at a value of 108 electrical degrees per second. Now, we will try to solve this one now. Okay. Now, I'll consider this equation. Yeah. Where is that accelerating part? Yeah. Okay. Now, m into d square delta by dt square is equal to t, isn't it? Or I can go with d square delta by, I do have this value of alpha, isn't it? So if this value is already, I know what is this value? 108, isn't it? So I am integrating it with respect to time. Or I'll do it one thing. Shall we do? Okay. We'll try integrating with respect to time and multiplying with 2 delta by dt. So first of all, let me multiply with 2 delta by dt, both sides. So this is equal to 108 into 2 into d delta by dt, isn't it? Now, I am going to integrate it with respect to time. So what will this become? 2 delta t d square delta by dt square is equal to, this is 260 integral of d delta by dt dot dt. Isn't it? So dt will get cancelled. So let us see. So this will become integral of this one is d delta by dt whole square. Isn't it, guys? This one is 260 integral of d delta. So what will this be? It will be delta. So this is my isn't it? Now I'm gonna this is one expression I'm gonna remember because this is angular velocity, isn't it? This was angular acceleration. This was angular velocity. Now I'll try to solve this one again. I'll again integrate with respect to t. What I'll be getting? This is delta integrating with respect to time. This is 260, isn't it? Into root delta. I'll do one thing. I'll use the variable separable method. So rearranging the terms. Right. Rearranging the terms. And integrating. See, what is this one? 1 by 260. I'll take that separate. This is 1 by root delta into d delta is equal to dt. Using the variable separable method of integral. So what will this become, guys? 1 by 260 remains same. This is going to be, what is the integral of this one? 1 by root delta. It is, I think it might be 2 root delta. This is the integral of this one, 1 by root delta, isn't it? What is the integral of this one? It is 3 naught. So what will this become? Delta is equal to, this is 108. So this will become 108 t volts, isn't it? So this is the expression for. So I have just used the variable separable method. This is 1 by root delta, integrating both sides here. I am here integrating with respect to delta here with respect to time here. So 1 by root delta integral is 2 root delta. dt integral is t. So from this one, what I have done, I have obtained the value of delta. So here 108 it will go here and whole square. So what is the value of? I know that t value is going to be 0.2 seconds, isn't it? What is t value? It is 0.2 seconds. So I think I'll be getting somewhere from, if you compute it, it should be somewhere around 4.24. It is somewhere around 4.24 or 4.32. You check it once. This is the value of delta. And once I have obtained the value of delta, I can compute angular velocity. This is omega. This is omega. Understood now? So this will be the change in, these are changes, guys. These are changes. This is deep. This is okay. Kindly check if I have done any mistake here. If I have done any calculation mistake, kindly rectify. But this is going to be the change in angular position, and this is going to be change in speed. Okay. So this is going to be change in speed, guys. So what we will be getting here? This is going to be change in speed. Initial speed. What was the initial speed? Initial speed was 120 f by t. Isn't it? 120 into 60 by number of poles, 4 poles. So it was 1800 RPM. Now this is the change in speed for 10 cycles. Now if you add this one to this one, so you will be getting the final speed at the end of 10 cycles. Okay. So I hope you solve these problems at home. Okay. And I'll ask you one more question on this. Okay. another generator, and another generator of 150 MVA, another generator of 150 MVA, having inertia constant of H is equal to 4 MJ per MVA, is connected in parallel to the above machine. Find the equivalent inertia constant. Find the equivalent inertia constant on a base of 100 MVA. So on a base of 50 MVA. Okay, 50 MVA. See, this is first machine. This is the rating. This is the H value. Second machine. This is the rating. This is the H value. What he is asking? He is asking the inertia constant at some other base value. I have told you the formula. G1 H1. G1 H1 is 100 into 10 plus this one is 150 into 4, but night batch. You can write it down. So what is this one? 1000 plus, right? This is 1000, this is 600. 1600 by 50. So what is it going to be? 328, right? How much for? 32. Isn't it? So the final value is going to be 32 MJ per M. This is the way how we will be calculating the equivalent value of the inertia constant. Okay. So what we have learned today? We have learned about spring equation, the problems on the spring equation, and how to compute the equivalent inertia constant for multi-machine systems. Okay. That's it for today. Thank you for joining.